Today I'm going to speak about how a cue for a new habit slowly becomes the whole environment around the habit and not only one specific cue, and how moving to a new environment or changing your environment around you helps habits. And another thing I'd like to speak about is how important it is to have a plan regarding building habits. So let's start with the first one, how the cues for the habits become the environment. So this is very important because when you start a new habit, so let's say there's one or a few cues that trigger the habit. So let's say, for example, watching videos on the bed or on the couch. So at the beginning, you have one, let's say you don't really even have a trigger, let's say too much for watching videos. But slowly, the trigger will become, for example, evening. Then another trigger will be the couch. Another trigger might become tea. And it'll be like, oh, so when you drink tea, you'll have the craving to watch videos. Or when you sit on the couch, you'll have a craving to watch videos. Or when it becomes dark, you automatically have a craving to watch videos. And that's already 3 cues. So the environment becomes a cue, becomes the cues for the thing that you do. That's one example. Phone is a very, very good example. Let's say at the beginning you get a phone. You don't know what uses they're for, especially if you just switching from a kosher phone or a phone that doesn't have any internet or anything like that, just calling and all of that. So you just want it for calling, but then slowly use it for this thing and that thing and all of that, and slowly it becomes, this is where the phone is so compelling and so irresistible because it's not only one trigger anymore. I call people over here. I watch videos on here. I send emails on here. I look on the search for data on here. I listen to interesting news topics on here. I do my work on the phone. Well, part of it on the phone. I get my entertainment on the phone. That's how I get in contact with family, so on, in all these different ways. It tracks me when I do exercise, let's say. I have checklists on my phone. I have all these lists on my phone. Everything you could think about is basically on the phone, so it becomes almost like a separate there's so many cues over here. The whole environment is the cue, and the whole environment is now with the phone, basically. And that's very interesting. And by the way, I don't know, maybe people that are on the border of, observant or not observant have this problem, and may we never have this problem, but I don't know if people that keep Shabbos, I don't know how many people really have a desire all the time to pick up the phone on Shabbos, especially if they have other things to do. The reason is because it's a whole different environment. Shabbos is a completely different environment. It's an environment that you don't think about any of the things any of daily, tasks or daily or business or anything that you would do on a phone. It's like it's all suddenly cut off, so that's why you don't think about it. And the whole environment of Shabbos is a totally different environment. That's why I think you could even be in the same place and the same atmosphere, but it won't cause you to think, oh, I want to look at on the phone or something like that. So those are 2 just very simple examples of the environment becoming cues. Now, the reason this is important is, first of all, to understand that when you start a habit and it's a good habit, then you'll slowly start building, and you have to work on this, of course, and you have to keep it in your awareness, because if not, it could get forgotten. You don't want that to happen, but it'll start building in the environment and becoming, the whole environment will become a cue, which could be amazing. But also there could be problems with that. You have to be careful, because let's say for example you have a learning, let's say you're learning something, or you're practicing a certain midah, a certain habit, a certain character, and the right environment gets you into it perfectly. But the problem is that one day you're going on a trip, so you're not in the right environment, and and then suddenly you know that it's harder because you're used to already the cue becomes the environment, so then it might make it a little bit harder for the trigger to come. So therefore you have to be more aware of that. Of course, you can figure out ways to do that anyhow. But I could point out also over here that, I mean, this is also from Atomic Habits and all of that. What's very important, I think this is very important for people to understand in all aspects of life, that you think, I want to be a strong person. I want to fight my Yetzer Hara. I want to fight and I want to win. I want to be, and whenever someone fails, they say, "Oh, I'm not strong enough." So one interesting thing and important thing to understand is people that did succeed, it doesn't mean that their self-control was so much stronger. What it means is they learned how to get themselves into an environment that it made it easier for them to do what was right and harder for them to do what was wrong. And that's very important. Don't think that, no, to show that I'm a true person is I go to all the hard situations and try doing what's right over there. That's not what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do is try fitting yourself into an environment and making your environment in a way that's going to help you do what's right. And then, of course, on the occasions that you get that temptation comes, it'll be easier for you because you're normally in it's not overwhelming because normally you're in a good situation, all of that. So of course you don't want to be unaware. That's also a problem. Like someone that has everything perfect, they could be unaware, and that's when temptation comes in. Okay, that's still a lot of tzaddikim. What do we say about tzaddikim? That they fail, but then they don't fail again. So that's a different category. I'm not talking about. I mean, they could fail a lot of times, but like David HaMelech, he failed terribly, but then afterwards he did tshuva, and that's the level of tzaddikim. That's very important. I'm not saying that they don't fail again. That we say is not true. But we say normally tzaddikim, when they see that they stumble on something, they figure out a way to handle it, and that's what's important. Okay, so of course we'll have to get into addiction and different things like that, and very high. That's very important because then it gets into a different topic. But I think also the habits and environment is very important in addictions, and there are studies on this that prove that environments change addictions. If you change your environment radically, it changes your addiction. And you associate your addiction with a situation and with a scenario. And when those situations and scenario are, you could get off of it much more easily. So that's very important. That's why a lot of times, even in the Torah, we say that galus is mechaperes. It takes you away from the place that you're at. You go into galus, you're able to change yourself. You're in a new environment, a new place, and you're able to. Of course, that's if you want to change. If not, then you might just get into a worse situation. So we spoke about those two things, that how it's associated with environment, how important it is, how new habits build. How you could build new habits and new environments more easily. So, now what's important to understand also is, like, let's say for example, someone, he has a table and he uses this table. Let's say he has one room. He has a table, a bed, and that's basically it. And he uses this table to daven. He uses the table to eat. He uses the table to write. He uses the table to watch stuff. He uses the table to think. He uses the bed to sleep. He uses the bed to watch stuff. He uses the bed when he's not feeling good. He uses the bed, maybe even sit down or whatever. So that's just a little example of someone that has his environment all mixed up, which makes it very hard to get organized habits. And this is the next thing I want to speak about, is organizing your habits and putting every habit for a certain place and certain time, and designate certain areas of a house. And if you have a small house, this could be harder, but it's important to do. Designate certain parts of your room or house for different things, like the table, depending on your situation. But let's say you should have it for, if it's, let's say, a dormitory and you eat somewhere else, let's say you should have it for writing. And not too many things, of course, whatever you need to do, but not eating, you do in the dining room. Watching, Maybe you have a different place for that, watching stuff. It could be. You have to see what works. Bed only for sleeping, because then when you have the bed only for sleeping, then you associate the bed with sleep, which makes you fall asleep when you go to bed, which is not the case if you have the bed for watching and for, I don't know, and if you have, for different things like that. Like I could give an example for myself. I know, naps, especially on Shabbos. So slowly naps became associated with me with thinking of things, and it caused me never to be able to fall asleep, because I start automatically. I started thinking about, my mind started running loose or whatever, and just going in every direction, and that makes it hard to fall asleep. So how that happens, I'm not sure. I'm just giving an example of how you could associate something with something more than what it's for. Then it's a problem when you try using it for what it's for. Like if you make a tool for something else, then you're confused when you're trying to use it for that thing that it's created for. And that's the important thing, to use the tools for what they created for. Of course, I'm not saying not be creative, but you want this for your benefit, to use the tools what they're created for and not use them for all these multi-reasons and get everything confused. In other words, you want everything organized. I don't mean organized in a physical sense that everything's in place, but in your mind, everything's in place, when everything is, where everything is, and all of that. So that's another important thing. Now, just a little bit more about self-awareness and all of that. Now, I want to give you this quote, and this is from actually Think to Grow Rich. It's he brings over there, and I think this is very important, that a quitter never wins and a winner never quits. So that you should, what the point is over here, not that you every time courageously fight against your breakdown or your desperation, depression from your defeat. That's not what it is. That's important also if you have that. But hopefully the point is, what you want to get to is a situation where you don't take defeat seriously. You don't associate it with yourself, with your being. You don't take it seriously. If you don't take defeat seriously, then you'll be able to continue succeeding. If you take defeat seriously, it's going to be very hard to succeed, because it'll pull you down so much, the defeat. And that's important in anything. In any problem that someone has, he fails in something, whatever it is, if it's a personal thing, a business thing, whatever it is, he fails. And if he takes it, and this is the tactic of the Yetzer Hara, if you take it to yourself, to heart, if you take it to, then you're going to fail, so it's very important to disassociate yourself with a failure. Of course, that when I say disassociate yourself, it doesn't mean don't learn from it. And it doesn't mean that you should say, oh, I never failed. It's a place to humble yourself. Of course, it's a place to humble yourself. But you can't associate yourself, your being, with a failure. Because if not, you're not going to be able to succeed. You're going to think yourself as a loser. And that's the way you become a loser, by seeing yourself as a loser. So therefore, don't associate yourself with defeat. Any defeat that you have, don't associate itself with yourself. Rather, associate yourself with winning. When you win, yes, associate it with yourself. But defeat, don't associate yourself with it. Okay, I know I'm repeating it again and again, but it's a very important thing. Yeah, so the mind, just to understand, also, the mind creates boundaries. And a lot of times, some things, of course, there's real failures, there's not real failures, but a lot of times, things that you think are failures and they're not really failures, they're just temporary defeats, or something that you just didn't do right, so you need to learn now. And the mind makes a whole workout out of it and creates a whole pillar out of nothing. And then basically it made a whole wall for you. Don't go past this, or don't do this. And then you failed in complying with your mind, and then your mind makes you feel horrible about it. And that's a big, big problem and a big cause of of failure and defeat is the fact that the mind catches you on the failures and defeats that you have and reminds you them. So that's very important, and that's why like getting out of your mind is also important. Disassociating yourself with your mind and looking at them from as if a different person is looking at them without judging. Okay, and that's very important. One last thing I would like to read over here, and this is also about self-growth and living in the now. About living in the now. The reason it's so hard for people who don't live in the present moment to make real free will decisions is because only their body is actually in the present. Their mind isn't. When your thoughts are stuck in the future or replaying the past, the you that's supposed to make conscious decisions isn't there. So your body just goes on autopilot, doing whatever you've trained it to do, whatever you've trained it to do from old habits, old patterns, and old reactions. It's like a shadow version of yourself. It's like a shadow version of yourself is running your life, acting automatically without new thought, without intention, without awareness. And because the consciousness thinking part of you isn't present, the decisions you make aren't real decisions. They're just the automatic behaviors you've practiced for years. To choose differently, to act with true free will, you need your mind and body to be in the same place here in the now. So it's very important. And okay, over here, then say it in the best way. I would say like this: associate yourself with the past and the future. You have to be in the now, and because then you're actually observing what's going on now, which means that you can make a decision and not like just automatic actions. And true, a lot of times observing, you would think it would cause the opposite because you're just observing without judgment over here. But then when you're observing without judgment, you're not in your feelings and all of that, and you're actually able to see, is this good or bad? Now, I'm not saying to begin to even try doing this, because first you have to be able to get to that situation where you're able to observe yourself. But in general, living in the now, you should be able to, before putting your hand automatically to eat something that's unhealthy, sticking out your hand to grab it, or sticking out automatically to pick up your phone, you'll be able to actually think about it and actually have real free will and not be on autopilot. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. And if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe. It'll really help us grow this channel. Thank you very much.